Welcome back. The SABC is in dire financial straits again. This week, the public broadcaster presented a 662 million rand loss for the 2016-2017 financial year, with the National Treasury promising to increase the parastatal's borrowing limits. Concerns over the financial viability of the company are even higher. Media Monitoring Africa's Sarah Findlay joins us now to discuss this. Sarah, thanks for your time again. Appreciate it. It's worrying when the public broadcaster has to be getting help from government again and again.
Yes, and thanks for having me again. But just as a point of clarity, they have not been given a government guarantee. They have been given a letter from the ministry saying that they can approach other financial institutions such as banks to get that 1 billion rand loan. It's not a government loan or bailout.
I know, that's what the SABC is saying. But when you get a letter from government saying you can go to a bank and apply for money and we will stand as the person who will be there to back you, it's a guarantee. It's like me and you going somewhere and I say to the bank, I'll be the guarantee for Sarah. Here's a letter of me confirming that she can borrow money, and if she can't pay it back, I will. That's what it looks like is going to happen.
That is what it looks like, but the banks can still say no.
Yes.
You know, as with any type of loan, the bank has the responsibility to make that kind of decision. And as it stands, that rests with the bank, regardless of who's backing the SABC.
I get that, Sarah, but the reality of this letter is government saying to a bank, we are standing as guarantees here. And you can lend the money at your own will, but do know that we are the guarantee. We are standing as guarantee here. And that ultimately means that government is saying to the banks, you give them the money, and if they don't pay it back, we will, which means taxpayers' money is going to be used again to bail out the SABC. Ultimately, we have to read between the lines as to what's happening. We can't buy what the SABC is telling the public as to what's happening.
And I think that speaks to another issue at the public broadcaster, is one of credibility and legitimacy, which is fundamentally undermined and has been for the last decade and a half. So as the public, we are struggling to take anything they say seriously. And I think there's reason and there's justification for that, but I think we're in a new era now. The board, regardless of the debt, they have made huge turnaround at the public broadcaster. I mean, a decade and a half of being in deliberate crisis, led by ministers and boards that are in dire straits. We are now slowly seeing that positive change that we so desperately need. And so I think at this point, things are looking hopeful for the SABC.
Yeah. I don't think we should ever take away from being optimistic about the SABC and its future. But the line that we've been given for the past 10 years, including this year, is that the financial mess is to blame on the previous administrations. When do we hear the SABC say, we're now on track, we are making money, and we're willing to do this the right way without fraud and corruption allegations being leveled against members of the board, against the CEO, the COO, or any other people in charge at the public broadcaster?
Well, the new board has only been in place since October last year. They haven't even been in place for a year. And if we're thinking of a mess that's been created over 15 years, we also need to allow for that time and that space for these things to happen. And I think they are happening slowly but surely. I mean, the two commissions that are currently underway at the SABC, looking into sexual harassment and looking at editorial interference, are a good indication of those kind of changes. But I agree, the public are frustrated, especially with this amount of money that's being poured in.
And then the public often wonders what's happening to the SABC TV license. Is it not feeding the beast that is the SABC? You have some of its most popular shows on SABC 1 where people are going on strike, production companies are pulling out because they haven't been paid, despite those shows having millions in advertising while they're on air. So it's kind of confusing to the man on the street as to why this is still happening.
Yes, and I think It's a mammoth problem. Just listening to the chair of the board earlier, he was saying that they have creditors issues, they have staff issues, they have a culture of intimidation and fear that they're trying to resolve. Never mind producing content, never mind trying to change this mammoth broadcaster into a more digitally savvy one, never mind continuing with operations as usual. I mean, the challenges ahead are enormous, and that's why they estimate a 3 billion rand is required to turn the SABC round, and they've only been given the support for 1.2.
Yeah. So when do we actually see the positives emerging, do you think? In a couple of years? Next year, maybe?
Well, I mean, I think a big positive is potentially with these new SABC editorial policies. We're having a new round of them, and maybe then, if they're held to a higher standard, we'll see better content being produced.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. We appreciate it. That was Sarah Findlay from Media Monitoring Africa. Now, Steinhoff's Marcus Juster did not supply the only drama in Parliament. Emotions ran high as MPs continued to listen to oral submissions on land expropriation without compensation. This week, various stakeholders are saying whether they're for or against amending Section 25 of the Constitution. Peladi Setusa reports.
NAFO identify itself with the poor of our people.
Emotions ran high in Parliament as MPs continue to hear arguments for and against land expropriation. Those in favour put forward ideas on how the process should unfold.
If a specific attention can be directed to Section 25, subsection 2B and 3, which gives the promise and hope of compensation. If it is done that way, the land will then be given back to the people from whom it was unlawfully taken.
Expropriate, but in some instances with reasonable compensation.
Section 25 must be removed and replace that section with the following. A, all land held by whites in South Africa is stolen property. Express that in the section itself. The eviction of farm workers and poor people from land must be declared illegal.
Even though there's agreement that land ownership is skewed, arguments against amending the Constitution were made.
It's not the Constitution that is failing the people. It is a bureaucratic, inefficient, highly fragmented and unaccountable government system.
We are against the change of that section in an isolated way. We are not against an opening up of a broader discourse.
The committee is now halfway through the list of oral submissions, which means they're one step closer to drafting a final report. Peladi Setusa, Parliament.
Now, following a go-slow since Monday, white Sasol employees are embarking on a full strike. Members of trade union Solidarity are protesting against benefits meant to empower black employees. The trade union plans to disrupt operations at the energy giant for 3 weeks, but Sasol says it has plans in place to minimize disruptions. Mia Spes has that story.
Sasol officially launched the Khanyisa Share Plan 3 months ago. Participants in Phase 1 of the plan are all permanent Sasol workers, regardless of race. But only black employees are eligible for the scheme's Phase 2 that gives them right to shares. Sasol says the implementation of Khanyisa marks a significant milestone in its transformation journey. But some workers disagree.
I'm here today because I'm unhappy. I feel that Sasol discriminates against some of his employees because of their skin color. I think it's not fair, and you can even feel the friction in the workplace itself. It's not good.
He says some black workers also support their plea.
I'm here for my colleagues with the new Sasol Khanyisa. I am included, but they're not, and I'm just here for them.
Solidarity, who represents more than 6,000 Sasol employees, handed over a memorandum to management.
The basis of the memorandum is, in the first place, the support of the Sasol workers, because this issue is much bigger than Sasol. The second part of the memorandum is a demand that companies must not make them guilty of race exclusion.
Following the Go Slow, Solidarity members will down tools at Sasol in Secunda tomorrow. The strike could last for up to 3 weeks.
The Solidarity members are the members that's in the artisan positions, and they are knowledge workers. So they know exactly what to do when to frustrate the processes at Sasol.
Sasol says it has contingency plans in place to minimize potential disruption to their operations, which remain in place for as long as workers continue striking. Mia Spies, Sasolburg.
Coming up, a news hour.
Right, it's too bad.
Yes,
I'm just hearing about it, and I did hear from Lindsay, but I'm just hearing about it. So